Minecraft story, Flicker and the legendary Glowberry, the whisper of the Glowberry. In a quiet corner of a Minecraft forest, where the blocky trees whispered secrets in the wind, lived a bright-eyed little fox named Flicker, with a tail tipped in snowy white and eyes that sparkled like emeralds. Flicker was no ordinary fox. He was a dreamer. Every night, as the square moon climbed high into the star-speckled sky, Flicker would gaze at its silvery glow and wonder about the world beyond the forest. But tonight was different. Tonight, Flicker had heard a story told by the wise old owl who lived in the tallest tree. Deep within the lush caves, the owl hooted, lies the legendary Glowberry. They say its light is so warm, so magical, that it can grant peaceful dreams to anyone who finds it. Flicker's ears perked up, his heart thumped in his tiny chest, and he made a decision. He would find the legendary Glowberry. Before dawn could peek over the horizon, Flicker padded softly towards the edge of the forest, where a small village nestled cozily among the hills. That's where he met Pip, a baby villager with curious brown eyes and a green tunic 2 sizes too big. "Where are you going, little fox?" Pip asked, his voice as soft as a summer breeze. "To find the legendary Glowberry," Flicker replied with a swish of his tail. "They say it grants the most peaceful dreams." Pip's eyes grew wide with wonder. "Dreams? Peaceful ones? I want to come with you." And just like that, Flicker and Pip set off together, 2 small adventurers, one furry and one curious, ready to face whatever lay in the heart of the lush caves. But little did they know, the journey ahead would be filled with glowing wonders, sleepy creepers, and secrets hidden deep in the caverns below. The entrance to the lush caves. Flicker and Pip walked side by side, their path lit by the soft glow of fireflies drifting lazily in the cool night air. The forest soon gave way to a rocky hillside, where a dark opening yawned like a sleepy mouth. The entrance to the lush caves. Pip hesitated, clutching the edge of his oversized tunic. "It's so dark in there, Flicker. Are you sure about this?" Flicker's emerald eyes shimmered with determination. "Don't worry, Pip. We'll stick together. And besides, legends say the Glowberry's light will guide us." Together they stepped into the cave. The air grew damp, and the distant sound of dripping water echoed through the stone halls. Strange glowing vines hung from the ceiling, casting a soft greenish light on the path ahead. As they ventured deeper, Pip noticed something glowing softly in a nearby pool of water. "Look, Flicker, glowing squids." The gentle creatures floated gracefully, their blue glow illuminating the cavern like tiny underwater lanterns. Pip knelt by the water's edge, mesmerized, while Flicker's nose twitched as he sniffed the air. Suddenly, a faint hissing sound broke the peaceful stillness. "Pip, stay still," Flicker whispered, his fur bristling. Out of the shadows emerged a sleepy creeper, its green form faintly glowing. It swayed back and forth, as if caught in a dreamy trance. Is it asleep?" Pip whispered nervously. Flicker nodded. "For now. But we must move quietly. Creepers may look peaceful when they're sleepy, but one wrong step, boom." Holding their breath, the 2 friends tiptoed around the snoozing creeper, their hearts pounding in their chests. When they were safely past, Pip let out a sigh of relief. "That was close," he said, clutching Flicker's tail for comfort. Deeper they went, following the glow of the vines and the soft melodic drip-drop of water echoing in the cave. But somewhere in the distance, a faint golden glow caught Flicker's eye. Pip, look, Flicker said excitedly, his tail wagging. Far ahead, through a narrow tunnel framed with glowing vines, was a soft golden light, the kind of light that could only come from something truly magical, the heart of the cave. The narrow tunnel twisted and turned, glowing vines brushing against Pip's oversized tunic and Flicker's twitching ears. The faint golden glow ahead grew brighter with each step, pulling them forward like a warm, invisible thread. When they finally squeezed through the last gap, they emerged into a breathtaking cavern. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before. The ceiling stretched high, dripping with thousands of golden glowberries that pulsed softly, as if breathing. The light bathed the cavern in a golden haze, and shimmering specks of magic floated in the air like gentle fireflies. A crystalline waterfall cascaded down moss-covered rocks, its water glowing faintly as it pooled into a glassy lake. Stalactites hung like ancient teeth from above, dripping softly into the water below. At the center of the cavern stood an ancient stone pedestal, weathered by time and draped in emerald moss. Upon it sat a single glowberry, larger and brighter than all the others. Its golden light shimmered like liquid sunshine, and Pip gasped as he clutched his chest. "It's beautiful," Pip whispered. Flicker's emerald eyes gleamed with awe. The legendary glowberry. We found it. But before they could step closer, the cavern trembled. A deep, resonant groan echoed through the stone walls. From a nearby pile of moss and stone, two enormous glowing eyes flickered open. Slowly, a moss golem rose from the ground, its body covered in thick green vines, patches of glowing moss, and jagged rocks. It was ancient and towering, and yet its movements were slow, deliberate, almost gentle. "Who enters?" "The heart of dreams," the golem rumbled, its voice like distant thunder. Flicker stepped forward bravely, tail held high. "We mean no harm, great guardian. We only seek the legendary glowberry to bring peaceful dreams to our village." The golem's glowing eyes studied them for a long moment. "Many have sought the berry's light. Few have returned. Tell me, little ones, what will you sacrifice for its gift?" Pip gulped and looked at Flicker. "Sacrifice? But we don't have anything." Flicker's emerald eyes softened as he stepped forward. "I will give up my fear. I will be brave no matter what lies ahead to make sure Pip and our village can sleep peacefully." Pip's small voice followed, trembling but determined. "And I will give up my doubts. I will believe in myself and in my friend Flicker, no matter how dark or scary things get." The golem's eyes flared brighter for a moment before softening into a warm glow. Slowly, it stepped aside, and the path to the legendary glowberry opened before them. "You have spoken with pure hearts," the golem said. "Take the glowberry, and may its light guide your way." Flicker and Pip stepped carefully onto the stone pedestal. Up close, the legendary glowberry's light felt warm, like a summer sunrise. Pip carefully took the berry and placed it into his satchel, clutching it to his chest as if holding a tiny sun. But as the berry left the pedestal, the cavern began to shake. Loose stones tumbled from above, and faint growls echoed from the tunnels they had come through. Flicker's ears flattened against his head. "Pip, we need to go, now." The moss golem let out a deep sigh, its glowing eyes dimming slightly. "The cavern will protect itself. Go, little ones, and do not look back." With the legendary glowberry secured, Flicker and Pip turned and sprinted back toward the tunnel, the cavern trembling behind them. The return journey. The tunnel was no longer silent. Shadows danced on the walls, and distant growls and clicks echoed behind them. Something was awake in the depths of the cave. Pip clutched the satchel tightly, his tiny feet stumbling over loose stones. Flicker, are they following us? Flicker glanced back, his emerald eyes sharp. Keep moving, Pip. We're almost there. As they raced through the twisting tunnels, faint golden light from the glowberry illuminated the path ahead. Behind them, shadows twisted and shifted, shapes of strange creatures with glowing eyes peering from the darkness. Suddenly the ground shook, and a portion of the tunnel began to collapse. Flicker yelped, leaping forward as rocks tumbled down. Pip tripped, the satchel flying from his grip. No! Pip cried, scrambling for the berry. Flicker lunged, catching the satchel in his jaws just as a heavy stone crashed where Pip had been moments before. Flicker skidded to a stop and turned back, his fur bristling. Pip, are you okay? Flicker asked, dropping the satchel. Pip coughed, his face smeared with dirt. Yeah, I'm okay. Let's keep going. But the sound of heavy footsteps filled the tunnel. Out of the shadows, a group of skulk stalkers emerged. Creatures made of glowing blue veins and shadows, their eyeless faces locked onto the glow of the legendary Glowberry. Flicker bared his tiny teeth. Run! Pip, don't stop. They bolted through the tunnels, the stalkers crawling and clawing after them. Pip's tunic caught on a root, and Flicker spun around, biting through the fabric to free him. The Glowberry's golden light flickered through the darkness, keeping the stalkers at bay just long enough for the two friends to keep moving. Finally, a faint, silvery light appeared ahead, the moonlight filtering through the entrance of the cave. We're almost out, Pip cried. But just as they reached the cave mouth, one final stalker lunged from the shadows. Flicker turned and pounced, snapping at the creature's glowing limbs. Pip, fueled by courage, grabbed a nearby stone and threw it at the stalker. The creature screeched and recoiled, and in that moment, Pip and Flicker burst out of the cave into the open air. The moon hung high in the sky, and the peaceful night wrapped around them like a comforting blanket. The stalkers hissed from the shadows but dared not step into the moonlight. Flicker and Pip collapsed onto the soft grass, panting and shaking. We did it, Pip said between breaths. Flicker dropped the satchel at Pip's feet, his emerald eyes gleaming. We really did. The legendary Glowberry glowed softly through the fabric, casting warm golden light over their tired faces. Together, Flicker and Pip made their way back to the village. The glow of the legendary Glowberry shone bright, promising peaceful dreams and warm nights for everyone. A village, bathed in light. Back at the village, Pip and Flicker carefully placed the legendary Glowberry in the center square. Its warm golden light spread through the night, filling every home with a soft, peaceful glow. That night, every villager, big and small, drifted into the most peaceful sleep they had ever known. And as the square moon shone brightly above, Flicker and Pip curled up under a tree, their eyes growing heavy, their dreams filled with golden light and endless adventures.
Steve decided it was time to start a new project in his Minecraft world. He had always loved the idea of building a farm where he could raise animals and grow crops to help the villagers. With his tools in hand, Steve set out to find the perfect spot for his new farm. After exploring the beautiful landscapes of Minecraft, Steve found an open, sunny meadow surrounded by trees and a clear stream running through it. It was the ideal place for his farm. Steve began to clear the land, preparing it for the exciting work ahead. Steve knew that he needed a cozy barn to shelter his animals. He gathered wood and built a sturdy barn with plenty of space for the animals to feel comfortable. The barn had big doors, soft hay beds, and warm light filtering through the windows. It was perfect. Next, Steve set out to find the cutest animals for his farm. He found friendly cows, sheep, pigs, and chickens in the nearby forests and fields. With gentle care, he led them back to the barn, where they quickly settled into their new home. Steve knew that a farm wasn't complete without a thriving garden. He tilled the soil and planted a variety of seeds, including wheat, carrots, potatoes, and melons. Steve watered the crops every day, watching them grow tall and strong under the warm Minecraft sun. To keep his animals safe and happy, Steve built strong fences around the barn and garden. The fences were high enough to keep out any wandering creatures and provided plenty of space for the animals to roam and play. The farm was becoming a haven of peace and joy. One day, Steve visited a nearby village to introduce himself to the villagers. They welcomed him warmly and were excited to hear about his farm. The villagers told Steve about their needs and how his farm could help them thrive. Steve felt a sense of purpose and determination to do his best. The crops in Steve's garden had grown beautifully, and it was time to harvest. Steve carefully picked the ripe vegetables and fruits, placing them in baskets. The garden was full of color and life, and Steve felt proud of his hard work. With baskets full of fresh produce, Steve visited the village again. The villagers were delighted to receive the gifts of food. They thanked Steve and shared stories of how the fresh crops would help their families. Steve felt a warm glow of happiness, knowing he was making a difference. Steve loved spending time with his animals. He fed them, brushed their fur, and made sure they were healthy and happy. The animals adored Steve. They followed him around the farm, always eager for his attention and care. Steve decided to build a special coop for his chickens. He gathered wood and built a cozy coop with nesting boxes and plenty of space for the chickens to roam. The chickens were thrilled with their new home and laid plenty of eggs for Steve to collect. One day, a friendly cat wandered onto the farm. Steve named her Whiskers and welcomed her with open arms. Whiskers quickly became friends with the animals and helped keep the farm free of pests. Steve was grateful for his new furry friend. Steve decided to expand his garden to grow even more crops. He planted pumpkins, sugarcane, and beetroot. The garden flourished under Steve's care, providing a bountiful harvest for the villagers. The farm was thriving, and Steve felt a deep sense of satisfaction. To make his farm even more special, Steve Steve built a charming windmill. The windmill stood tall and proud, its blades turning gently in the breeze. It added a touch of magic to the farm, and the villagers loved visiting to see it. The village children often visited Steve's farm to see the animals and play in the garden. Steve taught them how to care for the animals and grow crops. The children loved spending time on the farm, and their laughter filled the air with joy. One day, a friendly dog appeared at the farm. Steve named him Buddy and welcomed him into the family. Buddy quickly became friends with Whiskers and the other animals. He loved to play and help Steve with his chores. The farm felt even more complete with Buddy around. The villagers decided to host a community feast to celebrate Steve's farm and all it had provided. They set up tables in the village square and filled them with delicious food from the farm. The villagers, young and old, gathered to enjoy the feast, sharing stories and laughter. After the feast, Steve returned to his farm, feeling content and happy. He checked on the animals, making sure they were comfortable for the night. As the stars twinkled above, Steve sat by the stream, reflecting on the wonderful journey of building his farm. The village organized a harvest festival to celebrate the bounty of the farm. Steve decorated the farm with colorful banners and lights. The festival was filled with games, music, and delicious food. The villagers thanked Steve for his hard work and dedication. As the festival came to an end, Steve felt a sense of fulfillment and joy. He knew that his farm had made a positive impact on the village and brought happiness to many. With a heart full of gratitude, Steve looked forward to new adventures and challenges, knowing that his farm would always be a place of love and care. Good night, Steve. Sweet dreams.
In the warm, sandy shores of Minecraft's ocean biome, there lived a tiny baby turtle named Squirt. With his green shell, bright eyes, and an eagerness for adventure, Squirt was unlike any other turtle. One bright morning, as the sun peeked over the horizon, Squirt decided it was time to explore beyond his nest. Squirt waddled down to the water's edge, where the waves gently lapped against the sand. He was eager to see what lay beneath the surface. With a brave heart, he dove into the clear, pixelated water. The world beneath was a wonderland of coral, seagrass, and colorful fish darting around. As Squirt swam, he met a school of tropical fish. They danced around him, showing him the beauty of the coral reef. Squirt felt like he was in a living painting, with each fish adding a splash of color. He learned to swim with the currents, moving gracefully, like a true sea creature. Continuing his journey, Squirt found a sandy floor where he could dig and play. Here, he met a friendly dolphin who invited him to play tag. They swam together, looping around each other, laughing underwater in their own way. Squirt felt joy like no other, the water around him echoing with their playful sounds. Next, Squirt discovered a mysterious shipwreck. He explored the nooks and crannies, finding small treasures and old maps. Each piece of the ship told a story of adventure, and Squirt imagined the tales of
pirates and explorers from long ago. The shipwreck was his playground, full of secrets and surprises. As the sun began to set, Squirt came upon a magical kelp forest. The kelp swayed gently with the tide, creating a maze of green. Here he met a sea turtle elder, who taught him about the ways of the ocean. Squirt listened, feeling a connection to his heritage, learning about the stars that guided turtles back to their beaches. Night fell, and Squirt swam back towards the shore, the moon lighting his way. He found a quiet spot where the water was shallow and the stars shone brightly above. Lying on his back, floating gently, Squirt watched the stars, feeling the peace of the night. With his heart full of new adventures and friends, Squirt returned to his nest, tired but happy. He nestled into the sand, the sound of the sea lulling him to sleep. As his eyes closed, he dreamt of the vast, mysterious ocean and all the adventures yet to come. Good night, little Squirt, the brave baby turtle. Sweet dreams. May this story help you drift off to a land of dreams and adventures.
You are standing in the overworld looking down on a lush green forest with blue lakes and rivers throughout. Looking out further to the horizon, there are mountain blocks peeking through puffy white cloud blocks. The sky is bright blue and the sun is shining. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Feel your chest and belly fill with the fresh air. Then breathe out through your mouth. Feel your chest and belly return to their size. Since you are in the world of Minecraft, you too are made of blocks. In the high-up overworld, before you begin your journey, take a moment to bring your attention to how your blocky body feels. You have 2 rectangular blocks for feet, and they are covered by leather. These leather boots are a valuable item in the Minecraft world. They can combine with other items you find along your way to increase your armor. For now, step your right booted foot down, then your left. They will keep you planted sturdily on the ground in this world. Your ankle and knee blocks are perfectly aligned to your feet, helping you stand up strong. Make sure your hip blocks are balanced evenly, aligned with your stance. Your spine is straight and tall, as if it's made of 10 blocks stacked, one on top of the other, above your hips. These blocks extend all the way up to your neck and holding your head up confidently. Each part of your body is strong and supported. Your blocky shoulders are balanced out to either side of you and perfectly aligned with your hips. Imagine your head is a block that sits on the very top of you, and it's clear of anything besides what you see in this world. On the bottom of your field of vision, you have an inventory visible. There are 10 bright red hearts in a row. This is your health monitor. Throughout your journey through this world, be sure to check in on your health monitor to make sure it's full and you are at your strongest. You also have an axe to help you gather materials. Now you are ready to explore the world of Minecraft. You gently drop into the first biome to explore. You stand up on your blocky feet and see that you are in a jungle. You are standing below a tall tree on a bed of falling leaves that form the jungle floor. As you begin to walk, you can hear the leaves crunch under your footsteps. You can also hear faint sounds of animals that live in the jungle. Birds are chirping in the trees above you. What other animals live in this forest? You continue walking through the jungle and decide what material to get. As you walk and crunch the leaves below your feet, you notice the jungle tree leaves are dropping all around like raindrops. One after another, dropping from high above to the jungle floor. Most of them are small dark green leaves that float down effortlessly. Others, though, are bigger, rectangular, leaf-like materials that are heavier, so they fall to the floor more quickly. One of those falls just ahead of you. Walk over to it and pick it up. It's a jungle tree sapling. Gather this and a few other saplings that you see on the ground and keep them with you for now. There are plenty of trees where you are, and because there are so many trees, it's too shady and dim to plant the sapling. Keep walking under the dense treetops and crunching the fallen leaves beneath your steps until you come to a spot with more sunshine. There's a spot up ahead. A single sunbeam shines down on a clearing in the dense jungle trees. Now let's plant the saplings in the powerful sunshine. You were able to collect 3 of them, so let's plant all 3. Take the first bright green rectangular sapling out and place it on the ground, followed by the second and the third. Great job. Take a step back with your blocky feet and allow the sunlight to grow the trees right before your eyes. The trees grow bigger and bigger, infused with sunshine. The saplings are now as tall as you. As if you were a sapling, able to infuse yourself with sunshine and grow, take a moment to feel the warm sunshine on your face and your skin. Focus on the warmth and taking deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth while the trees grow taller and taller. You can hear the sounds of birds chirping and squawking getting closer. The trees have now grown up to full size. You use your tools to get a little bit of wood from one of the tree trunks in case you need it later. As you're chipping away, the chirping bird sounds get even closer. All around you now are many brightly colored parrots. These are tameable mobs that are friendly. They flock to the trees that you grew for them and begin making their nests. They are so thankful for more places to live in the jungle. You focus on one bright yellow parrot as it flies around, investigating the new trees. It notices you too, and instead of landing on a tree branch, flies straight to you and lands on your shoulder. It quietly squawks as it sits on your shoulder. Parrots are helpful because they can hear hostile mobs approaching when you cannot. Your parrot friend will alert you if something is coming by, imitating the sound they hear. This will be helpful along your journey. Continuing along the jungle floor, you see a big structure spawning up ahead. Walk towards it with your parrot friend on your shoulder. As you approach, you can see that it's a massive jungle pyramid that reaches high into the sky like a stone castle. It's made of blocks of cobblestone and moss and is almost hidden by the tall, dense jungle trees that almost completely surround it. Standing before the stone structure, you feel small and curious as to what's inside. The entrance is an open archway. Walk through it and let's see what there is to explore in the jungle pyramid. There are 3 big steps to get to the entrance. Hop up on the first, then the second, and lastly the third. Walking through the entrance into the pyramid, it feels cooler as you stand in a big open space with a single set of stairs that takes you to a basement floor. There are 2 staircases on either side that will take you to the top floor. Looking down the center staircase to the basement floor, you wonder what could be down there. It looks dark since there are no windows. You decide to check your inventory to see if you can craft a torch. You see that you have some wool, wood, a single piece of charcoal, an axe, and a 1-stick. Can you make a torch with any combination of these items? You can. If you combine the stick with a piece of coal, you can craft 4 torches. Your parrot friend squawks, watching you work diligently, crafting your torch. You decide to use one now to light your path down to the basement and keep the other 3 in your inventory in case you need it. With your torch held high in your hand and your parrot friend still on your shoulder, you begin to carefully walk down the steps, one by one, so you don't trip. Step your right block foot down the first step, then your left block foot, right, left, left, all the way down the staircase. Now on the basement level, the flickering flame from your torch lights up just enough for you to see all 4 cobblestone walls. There's moss trailing along them and a misty feeling in this cool, darkened place. You turn around in a circle, using your torch to light up each area of this level. Directly behind you, there's a wall of blocks with 3 levers on them. You walk over to them. Do these levers open something? Reach your hand up and grab one of the levers. It's a little difficult to pull down, but use your strong block arms to pull it all the way down. When you do, you hear a heavy mechanical sound behind the blocks, but it doesn't seem like anything happened. The lever beside it is in the down position, so you set your torch on the cobblestone wall and use both hands to strongly push the lever into the upright position. You hear another heavy, mechanical sound coming from behind the wall. There's one last lever that is in the center position. Which direction do you think you should move it? Once you decide, do the same with the last lever. You hear the same sound again, but this time you hear gears turning too. All of a sudden the blocks open up and reveal a secret room. You solved the jungle pyramid puzzle. The secret room is small, but around one of the corners you see a chest for you to fill your inventory with. You open the chest and see that you've added bamboo, diamond ingot, and an enchanted book to your inventory. Can you craft any of these new items with what you already have in your inventory? You look down to your block feet booted with leather and remember that they can be combined with other items. If you craft the enchanted book with your leather boots, it could give you the feather falling enchantment that would protect you against falling or tripping in this world. It worked. You now have the feather falling protection. Great job. Turn back around and head out of the secret room. Back up the staircase and out of the jungle pyramid. You are standing at the entrance of the pyramid, facing the lush green jungle. Hop down the 3 big steps with your block feet. Hop down the first, then the second, and lastly, the third. Resume walking through the jungle, enjoying the breeze as it floats through the trees, gently blowing the leaves all around. The sun is beginning to set, and the world is cast in shades of pink. There are a few blocky light pink clouds floating in the sky above the jungle. It's almost nighttime, so you need to build somewhere to sleep for the night. You are standing on grass and dirt blocks in the jungle, surrounded by oak trees that can be used as logs. Take a look at your inventory to see what tools you can use to build your house. You have an axe. Use that to get the oak logs from the tree. You can also use the axe to dig into the jungle hills to create a flat platform for your house. You axe your way through a hill, strike, by strength. Slowly but surely, you flatten the hill and have the perfect spot ready to start building your house with oak logs. You walk to every tree you can see and grab one log after another. You place the first log down on the flat ground, then another forming an L shape, then another and another, until you have a square base on which to continue building your house. As you continue layering the oak logs until the walls of your house are nearly done, your parrot friend makes a noise, letting you know that there's a hostile mob nearby. You look around and see that a zombie mob has spawned since the sun has nearly set. It's running straight towards you. To get away, you run up a tree, block by block. It's able to follow you and is close behind you. That's when you remember you have the feather falling protection. Standing on the very top of the tree, you and your parrot friend jump down from the tree into the house you are building. As you float gently and smoothly through the air, arriving safely inside the newly built walls of your house, you quickly use the rest of your wood blocks to fully block in the door and roof of your house and protect yourself and your parrot from the zombie. Great job. Once you're safely in your house, you look back at your health monitor. All the commotion from the zombie mob has lessened your health by 2 hearts. Now you can focus on regaining your health back. Looking back at your tools, you see that you have wool and wood. You decided to make a soft, cozy bed to sleep on. You place the wood logs, one on top of the other, and then cover it with a blanket of fuzzy wool. It's a little chilly in the nighttime, so you set up your 3 remaining torches around you in your house. You set up one as a fireplace where you can cook dinner, another on the wall as a lamp, and the last right by your new bed to keep you warm through the night. You plop down on your bed with the glowing light from the fireplace warming your entire house. You take a deep breath in. When you cannot take in any more air, pause for a quick moment. Place your hands over your heart and feel its steady beat. Then, slowly breathe all the air out through your mouth. You take one quick look back at your inventory and see that you have something you didn't notice before. It's a cookie. You enjoy your surprise cookie, laying in your soft, warm bed, and peacefully drift off to sleep.
In the vast, pixelated world of Minecraft, there lived a brave and curious baby wolf named Wolfie. Wolfie had soft gray fur, bright eyes, and a playful spirit. One sunny morning, as the blocky sun rose high in the sky, Wolfie woke up with a sense of excitement. He decided to explore the biomes beyond his familiar forest. With a wagging tail and a smile on his face, Wolfie set off on his adventure, eager to discover new places and meet new friends. As Wolfie wandered through the Minecraft landscape, he came across a beautiful flower forest. The trees were tall and covered in colorful blossoms, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers. Wolfie marveled at the beauty of the forest and decided to explore its depths. He followed a trail of daisies, feeling a sense of peace with each step. The flower forest was magical, and Wolfie felt like he was in a dream. Continuing his journey, Wolfie stumbled upon a cozy village nestled in the hills. The villagers were friendly and welcomed Wolfie with open arms. They showed him their homes made of different types of blocks and shared stories of their peaceful lives. Wolfie felt a sense of belonging and enjoyed learning from the villagers. They taught him about farming, trading, and building. Wolfie was grateful for their kindness and felt inspired to continue his journey. As Wolfie continued his adventure, he arrived in a vast desert. The sun was hot, and the sand stretched as far as the eye could see. As Wolfie walked through the desert, he discovered a hidden oasis. The oasis was a lush paradise with palm trees, cool water, and plenty of shade. Wolfie drank from the refreshing spring and rested under the trees. The oasis was a haven in the desert, and Wolfie felt rejuvenated by its beauty. Entering into a dense jungle, Wolfie marveled at the tall trees and thick vines. The jungle was alive with the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves. As Wolfie explored further, he met a playful ocelot named Dot. Dot had sleek fur and bright, curious eyes. "Hello, Wolfie," Dot greeted him cheerfully. "Would you like to join me on an adventure?" Wolfie eagerly agreed, and together they explored the jungle, climbing trees and chasing butterflies. As Wolfie and Dot continued their journey, they came across a lush bamboo jungle. The tall bamboo stalks swayed gently in the breeze, and the ground was covered in green leaves. Wolfie and Dot carefully navigated through the jungle, admiring the tall plants and the playful pandas that lived there. The pandas were friendly and curious, and Wolfie and Dot enjoyed playing with them and feeding them bamboo. The bamboo jungle was a place of tranquility and joy. Traveling by boat across a calm sea, Wolfie and Dot discovered a unique mushroom island. The island was covered in giant mushrooms, and the air was filled with the scent of mushrooms and moss. Wolfie and Dot explored the island, finding friendly mushrooms grazing among the giant fungi. The mushrooms were gentle and curious, and Wolfie and Dot enjoyed their company. The mushroom island was a place of wonder and enchantment. Continuing their adventure, Wolfie and Dot found themselves in a chilly taiga forest. The trees were tall and covered in snow, and the ground was blanketed in white. Wolfie and Dot enjoyed playing in the snow, building snowmen, and sliding on the icy ground. They met friendly foxes who showed them how to find food and stay warm. The taiga forest was a place of beauty and adventure, and Wolfie and Dot felt a sense of wonder. Venturing further, Wolfie and Dot discovered an ocean monument guarded by friendly guardians. The monument was grand and imposing, with glowing sea lanterns lighting the way. The guardians welcomed Wolfie and Dot and showed them around the monument. They felt a sense of awe as they explored the intricate architecture and marveled at the monument's beauty. The ocean monument was a place of wonder and protection, and Wolfie and Dot felt grateful for the guardian's guidance. As they traveled through snowy biomes, Wolfie and Dot discovered a cozy, snowy village. The villagers were bundled up in warm clothes and welcomed the adventurers with hot cocoa. Wolfie and Dot enjoyed playing in the snow and learning about the villagers' way of life. They felt a sense of warmth and community in the snowy village, and the villagers' kindness filled their hearts with joy. Continuing their journey, Wolfie and Dot arrived in a vast savanna. The tall grass swayed in the wind, and the sun cast a golden glow over the landscape. Wolfie and Dot met friendly llamas and giraffes, who showed them the beauty of the savanna. They explored the open plains, feeling the freedom of the wide open space. The savanna was a place of adventure and serenity, and Wolfie and Dot felt a deep connection to the land. As Wolfie and Dot ventured back into the jungle, they discovered an ancient jungle temple covered in vines and moss. The temple was a place of mystery and history. Wolfie and Dot carefully navigated through the temple, uncovering hidden chambers and solving puzzles. Inside, they found relics and artifacts that told stories of a bygone era. The jungle temple was a place of discovery and intrigue, and Wolfie and Dot felt a sense of accomplishment as they unlocked its secrets. Beauty. As night fell, Wolfie and Dot found a high hill and lay down to watch the stars. The sky was filled with twinkling lights, and the moon cast a gentle glow over the land. Wolfie and Dot felt a sense of calm and wonder as they gazed at the night sky. The stars seemed to tell stories of their own, and Wolfie and Dot felt a deep connection to the universe. The starry night was a perfect end to their adventurous day. Feeling fulfilled by their adventures, Wolfie and Dot decided it was time to head back home. They retraced their steps through the jungle, the taiga forest, and the flower forest. Along the way, they thought about all the wonderful places they had discovered and the friends they had made. Wolfie and Dot felt a sense of gratitude for the experiences and the memories they had created. Finally, Wolfie reached his cozy den in the forest, with Dot by his side. The familiar sights and sounds filled them with warmth and comfort. Wolfie and Dot settled into their cozy spots, feeling safe and content. As they closed their eyes, they thought about the friendly places they had visited and the joy of their grand adventure. Wolfie and Dot drifted off to sleep with smiles on their faces, dreaming of more friendly Minecraft adventures to come. Good night, Wolfie the baby wolf and Dot the ocelot. Sweet dreams.
Steve had a long autumn day in Minecraft. He went fishing by the lake, which was relaxing. After that, he took a quiet walk through the woods. On his walk, he met a friendly pig. Steve found a mossy rock and sat down to meditate. The forest was so calm. He felt at peace. But now, the sun is setting. It's time to set up camp for the night. Steve looks for a safe place to pitch his tent. He sees a turkey, his favorite autumnal bird. As it gets darker, the autumn air feels cool and soothing. Oh, what's that? A pumpkin. Steve finds a pumpkin and sits down to carve it. He makes a jack-o'-lantern. It turns out just right. A perfect fall craft. The jack-o'-lantern's light goes out, so Steve builds a campfire. He decides to make a s'more. He roasts a marshmallow over the fire. It's perfect. He makes the s'more and enjoys it. He feels ready to sleep. This is a great place to camp, so Steve pitches his tent. He needs to wait for the campfire to go out before he sleeps. But he's getting so sleepy. He sits by the fire, watching it burn, feeling tired. Then he remembers. Campfires are safe in Minecraft. It's okay to let this fire burn all night. So he goes inside his tent. It's bedtime. Steve snuggles into his cozy sleeping bag. He thinks about the woods outside. He thinks about the stars and what he'll do in the morning. Maybe he'll explore the Red Rock Mine. He feels so cozy and safe in his tent. The forest is calm. The forest noises are soothing. Steve closes his eyes and drifts off to sleep. He dreams about autumn in Minecraft.
In a quiet corner of the Minecraft overworld, where the grass glowed softly under a starry sky, there stood a cozy little shack made of smooth oak planks and glowing lanterns. This was no ordinary shack. It was Steve's sleepy lava chicken shack, a magical place where the air smelled of warm, toasty feathers and the gentlest hum of adventure. Steve, with his kind eyes and a beard that danced in the breeze, loved this shack more than anything. It wasn't just a place to cook his famous lava chicken. It was a place where tired travelers, curious villagers, and even sleepy chickens came to rest. The shack sat by a bubbling brook, its waters sparkling like tiny diamonds under the moonlight. Nearby, fluffy sheep snoozed in a field, their wool puffing up like clouds, and a family of blocky turtles waddled slowly toward their cozy beach beds. Inside the shack, everything was soft and warm. The walls were lined with shelves of golden wheat and carrots, and a small furnace glowed with a gentle orange light. In the center stood Steve's special contraption, a funny whirring machine that looked like a mix of pistons, redstone, and a big shiny bucket. But this wasn't a loud, fiery machine. Oh no, this was the dreamy lava cooker, a magical invention that used the softest, warmest lava glow to make the coziest meals in all the overworld. As you close your eyes and imagine this peaceful place, picture yourself walking through the overworld. Your bare feet feel the cool, squishy grass beneath you, and a gentle breeze tickles your cheeks. You hear the cluck-cluck of a fluffy chicken waddling nearby, its feathers puffing out like a tiny pillow. You follow the chicken toward the shack, where a warm golden light spills out from the windows, inviting you closer. Steve sees you and waves, his smile as bright as a freshly crafted torch. "Welcome, little adventurer," he says in a soft, sleepy voice. "You're just in time for a special bedtime treat." He leads you inside, where the air feels like a warm hug. The dreamy lava cooker hums quietly, and you notice a single happy chicken perched on a cushion, clucking contentedly. Steve chuckles. "This is Clara, our sleepiest chicken. She loves helping me make the coziest lava chicken in the world." You sit on a soft woolen bench, feeling the cushions sink just a little under you. Steve begins to work his magic. He pours a tiny bucket of glowing syrupy lava into the cooker. Not hot or scary, but warm and twinkly. Like liquid starlight, the lava swirls gently, casting dancing shadows on the walls that look like fluffy clouds and sleepy trees. Clara the chicken hops closer, and with a little poof, the cooker sprinkles a handful of sparkly redstone dust. The air fills with the scent of warm bread and roasted herbs, so calming that you feel your eyelids growing heavy. "Now listen closely," Steve whispers, his voice like a lullaby. "The secret to sleepy lava chicken isn't just the ingredients. It's the love we put into it. Every cluck, every sparkle, every warm glow is a wish for sweet dreams." The cooker chimes softly, like a distant music box, and out comes a plate of the most beautiful lava chicken you've ever seen. It's golden and fluffy, shaped like a perfect little cube, with a tiny shimmer that makes it look like it's glowing from within. Steve hands you a piece, but it's not for eating tonight. It's for dreaming. "Hold this close," he says, "and let its warmth carry you to the land of dreams." You clutch the soft, warm chicken cube to your chest, feeling its gentle heat spread through you like a cozy blanket. The shack grows quieter, the lanterns dimming to a soft flicker. Clara the chicken curls up in a nest of hay, her clucks fading into tiny snores. The brook outside babbles its sleepy song, and and the stars above twinkle like they're winking just for you. As you sink deeper into the woolen bench, Steve begins to hum a gentle tune, softer than the wind in the trees. La 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 la, chicken, he sings, but it's slow and dreamy, like a song from a faraway memory. Sleepy lava chicken, yeah, it's cozy as can be. Oh, little dreamer, now you're drifting off with me. His voice wraps around you like a warm scarf, and you feel yourself floating, lighter than a feather, into a world of soft blocks and endless skies. In your dreams, you wander the overworld, where every tree is a pillow, every cloud is a bed, and every chicken clucks a lullaby. The lava chicken glows in your hands, guiding you to a meadow where you lie down, the grass cradling you like a hug from the earth. The stars above spin slowly, forming pictures of Steve, Clara, and the sleepy lava chicken shack, all watching over you as you sleep. And as you drift deeper, you know that tomorrow you can return to the shack whenever you need a cozy escape.
Once upon a time, in a world made entirely of blocks, there was a young adventurer named Steve. Steve lived in a small hut made of dirt and wood, on the outskirts of a vast, never-ending forest. Despite his humble beginnings, Steve had a big heart and an even bigger imagination. One day, while out exploring the forest, Steve stumbled upon a hidden cave deep in the earth. Inside the cave, he found an ancient book that told the story of a legendary dragon that lived in the far-off End dimension. The book spoke of the dragon's immense power and the treasures it guarded, including a powerful artifact known as the Ender Dragon Egg. Determined to find the dragon and claim the egg for himself, Steve set out on a perilous journey across the land. Along the way, he faced many dangers, including hostile mobs like zombies, skeletons, and creepers. But Steve was brave and resourceful, and he had a secret weapon, the power of imagination. With each step he took, Steve imagined himself growing stronger, faster, and more resilient. He crafted powerful tools and weapons from the resources he found along the way, and he built a sturdy shelter to protect himself from the dangers of the night. Finally, after many days of travel, Steve arrived at the portal that led to the end. With a deep breath, he stepped through the portal and found himself in a strange and hostile world. The dragon was waiting for him, its massive wings blocking out the sky. But Steve was ready. With all his strength, he drew his sword and bow and charged at the dragon. The battle was long and fierce, but in the end, Steve emerged victorious. The dragon lay defeated, and the Ender Dragon Egg was his. As Steve returned home, he realized that his journey had taught him something important. It wasn't just about defeating the dragon and claiming its treasures, it was about the power of imagination, the strength of courage, and the value of hard work. And with these lessons, Steve knew that he could conquer anything that lay ahead.
Emie and Birch were jumping on their beds, trying to decide what their next adventure in the world of Minecraft would be. Jumping on beds was fun, Birch said. He wanted to go even higher. I have an idea, said Emie. Emie's idea was to gather 16 slime blocks. She set them on the ground like a great green trampoline. Emie jumped first. She hit the trampoline and bounced into the air. Seeing that it was safe, Birch jumped too. Emie and Birch bounced higher than ever before. But it was not high enough for Birch. He wanted to fly like a parrot. I have another idea, said Emie. In her room, Emie had a treasure chest. Inside the chest, she kept all her strange and marvelous Minecraft loot. At last, Emie found out what she was looking for. She showed Birch a pair of wings called elytra. With these on your back, you will be able to fly, she said. Birch put on the wings right away. He was very excited to fly. He leaped off the cliff before Emie could warn him that there was a problem. The elytra were old and broken. They did not work. Emie knew how to fix the wings. They would need to find a phantom and stay awake for 3 days. Silly Birch thought smashing their beds would do the trick. To stay awake, Emie and Birch went on an adventure underground. Together, they fought hostile mobs in a mossy cave. Emie blocked arrows with her shield while Birch defeated creepers before they could explode. Bite made sure any cute animal mobs were safe from harm. On their second night without sleep, they climbed back up to the surface. In a creepy swamp, they fought slimes in the mud. Despite the battle, Emie was able to add some blue orchids from the swamp to other flowers in her inventory. On the third night, Emma used a crafting table to make fireworks out of gunpowder and paper. Birch used a furnace to cook steaks. He gave the first steak to Bite. The tame wolf loved it. After their picnic, Emie and Birch looked up at the stars. It was a clear night with a bright full moon. Suddenly, Birch saw something fly across the moon. Is it a bird, he asked, or is it a bat? That's a phantom, Emie shouted. The hostile mob swooped down at them. The phantom attacked again and again. It was fast and silent and scary. Birch swung his sword, and he fired an arrow with her bow. Working together, they defeated the phantom. The phantom left behind a little piece of itself. The piece was called a phantom membrane. At an anvil, Emie used the phantom membrane to fix the old elytra. Finally, Birch was able to fly. He glided through the air. Emie cheered, but wagged his tail. Parrot squawked in surprise. Birch uses elytra too as a firework rocket to soar higher and higher. From so far up, he could see all across the overworld. There was an ocean they could swim in, a mountain they could climb, and a desert pyramid they had yet to explore. Birch told Emie about everything he had seen. Are you ready for another adventure, he asked. Always, said Emie. Let's go!
Minecraft, the heart of the overworld. Chapter 1. Glitch in the Grasslands. Steve opened his eyes. The world shimmered into focus. Blocky hills, scattered oak trees, and a peaceful plains biome under the bright square sun. He took a breath of the cool, coated air and looked around. No tools, no armor, no items. Just an empty inventory and the familiar feeling of starting fresh. He checked the sky. The sun was already moving. Time to act fast. With practiced hands, Steve punched a nearby oak tree. The thump of his fists against bark echoed in the air. Within seconds, he had gathered enough logs to craft planks and build a crafting table. Then came sticks, a wooden pickaxe, and a wooden sword, his first tools. Back to basics, Steve said with a small grin. He spotted a hill nearby and began digging a quick shelter into the dirt side with his pickaxe. A humble hidey hole, just enough space for himself, the crafting table, and maybe a furnace later. He placed a wooden door, stepped inside, and sealed it shut. Outside, the sound of mobs beginning to spawn echoed in the night. Groaning zombies, hissing spiders, and the distant rattle of a skeleton's bowstring. Steve sat quietly in his shelter, planning his next moves. That's when he noticed it. A strange light. It flickered in the corner of his hideout, soft, purple, and pulsing like a heartbeat. Steve turned slowly. There, embedded in the dirt wall, was a thin crack, not a normal block, not any block he'd ever seen. Purple particles drifted out of it like those from a nether portal, but something was off. He stepped closer. Suddenly, a message appeared before his eyes, burning across the air like a system prompt. System alert. World instability detected. Corruption spreading. Locate the heart of the overworld. Steve blinked. What? The crack glowed brighter for a moment, then vanished completely, leaving behind a single dropped item spinning on the ground. A book and quill. Steve picked it up. The item glowed faintly, like an enchanted tool. He opened it. To the player who reads this, the overworld is breaking. The code that holds our world together is unraveling, bit by bit, biome by biome. I tried to stop it, but I failed. Now it's up to you. Deep below the bedrock, beyond even the end and the nether, lies the heart of the overworld. If it is not restored soon, everything will glitch into chaos. Find the fragments. Rebuild the heart. You are our last hope. Mia the Builder. Steve's hand dropped to his side, the book still open. The heart of the overworld? He'd explored countless worlds, fought ender dragons, conquered ocean monuments, but he'd never heard of this. A soft spark flickered again in the dirt where the crack had been, but it was gone in an instant. Steve looked up at the ceiling of his tiny shelter. Somewhere, out there in the dark plains beyond, was a mystery bigger than any stronghold or ancient city. He opened his inventory, placed the book and quill in the top left slot, and gripped his wooden sword tightly. Outside, the mobs groaned louder, but Steve had already made up his mind. The overworld needed him, and he was ready. Chapter 2, The First Fragment. Steve stepped out of his shelter at sunrise. The blocky light spilled across the plains, casting long shadows from the trees and lighting the tops of the tall grass in gold. Most of the mobs from the night had already burned away, leaving behind a few bones and rotten flesh scattered across the field. He scanned the horizon, hand resting on his wooden sword. The world looked normal, peaceful even, but the book still sat in his hotbar, a glowing reminder that something deeper, stranger, was happening beneath the surface. Steve headed toward a nearby hill to get a better view. From the top, he spotted the landmarks of a typical world, a winding river, a patch of dark oak forest to the west, and just beyond that, barely visible, a flicker of something unusual. A shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising off a desert. That's where he went. As he crossed into the dark oak forest, the canopy closed overhead. Shadows danced between the trunks, and the sound of mobs still lurking in the shade kept Steve on alert. He gathered mushrooms along the way, both red and brown, and crafted a couple of mushroom stews when he had a moment. Food was important. This journey wouldn't be short. The shimmer grew clearer as he neared a clearing in the forest. Steve parted the last few leaves and froze. In the middle of a mossy stone circle sat a ruined portal. Obsidian blocks glowed faintly, laced with crimson nether vines. Half buried in the grass was a broken chest, and scattered around it were items, some familiar, some not. Steve crouched and examined the pile. There was a piece of flint and steel, worn down to its final use, a golden shovel with only a sliver of durability, and something else, an odd, swirling shard that shimmered with both ender purple and the orange glow of magma. You have found fragment number 1, Seed of Origin. The message flashed across his view as Steve picked it up. The shard pulsed gently in his hand, like a heartbeat. He opened the book again. A new page had appeared. Fragment 1, the Seed of Origin. All worlds begin with a seed. This one was no different. When corrupted, the first seed splits, leaking its power across biomes. Find them, unite them, restore the heart. Steve placed the shard in the safest slot of his inventory. As he looked up, the ruined portal sparked unexpectedly. A puff of purple smoke burst from one of the obsidian blocks, and something stepped out. It wasn't a piglin. It wasn't even a normal mob. Its body flickered and glitched, shifting between a zombie's shape and a villager's, then a skeleton's, then something unrecognizable. Its eyes glowed bright red, and its movements were jerky, like broken frames in a corrupted animation. Not good, Steve muttered. The glitched mob let out a garbled screech and lunged forward. Steve dodged, swinging his wooden sword. The hit connected, but the creature didn't flinch. It shuddered, reassembled itself, and came back stronger. Bits of code shimmered around its edges, as if reality itself couldn't hold it stable. Steve ran. Through the forest, between thick trees and under low branches, the creature gave chase. It moved fast, unnatural, sometimes blinking forward in strange bursts. Steve ducked behind a rock, reached into his inventory, and threw down a handful of cobblestone blocks, building a quick wall. Then he heard it again. Zap! The creature glitched through the wall. Steve had seconds. He opened the crafting table and combined sticks and cobble. Just in time, a stone sword. This time, when the creature charged, Steve met it head-on. The stone blade connected with a flash of light. The creature screamed in static, stumbling backward. Steve struck again and again, and on the final hit, it burst apart into a swirl of red pixels and flickering sparks. Silence returned to the forest. Steve panted, heart pounding. He checked his health, 3 hearts left. He quickly ate some mushroom stew and watched his hearts tick back up. Then he noticed something on the ground. A glitched eye, not quite an ender eye, but not far off. He picked it up, and the book updated again. Glitched eye acquired. These will guide you. Each points toward the next fragment, though beware, the path will twist. Steve looked to the horizon. He now had a piece of the puzzle. 1 fragment of a broken world. He still didn't fully understand what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. This world was unraveling, and only he could put it back together. He checked the sun. Still early afternoon, enough time to travel before the next nightfall. With his stone sword in hand and the seat of origin tucked safely away, Steve headed out once again, toward the next mystery, toward the next fragment, toward the heart of the overworld. Chapter 3: Signals in the Sand. Steve followed the glitched eye for hours. It floated in his hand like an ender eye, pulsing with an erratic glow. Each time he activated it, the eye spun, shook, and pointed south, toward the horizon, beyond forests and rivers. He passed through a flower forest, stopping only to collect a few poppies and azures. The glitched eye pulsed harder when he reached the edge of the savanna, then again when he descended into the cool sands of a desert biome. That's where things got weird. It started with the sky. The square sun had been directly overhead when he entered the desert, but after a few minutes of walking, it hadn't moved. The lighting was stuck in a strange golden haze. No shadows shifted, no mobs spawned. Even the sand beneath Steve's boots had an odd shimmer, like it was flickering between textures. Then he saw it, half buried in the dunes, an old desert temple. Except, not normal. One of its towers was floating, slightly off the ground. The top rotated slowly, like a glitched chunk out of sync with the rest of the structure. The sandstone blocks flickered between smooth and cut versions, changing every few seconds. It was as if the code holding it together was struggling to load. Steve approached with caution. The glitched eye pulsed wildly in his hotbar. Inside, the central chamber looked familiar. 4 smooth sandstone pillars, a blue terracotta tile in the center, and a long drop into the treasure room below. But instead of jumping in, Steve crouched and carefully mined the orange tile next to the pressure plate, disabling the TNT trap below. He dropped down. 4 chests sat waiting. The first held bones, some sand, and a single iron ingot. The second, a golden apple and 3 emeralds. The third contained a fragment. It shimmered in Steve's hand. This one shaped like a warped prism, green and gold, with shifting patterns along its surface. You have found Fragment 2, Pulse of the Dunes. Another page appeared in the book and quill. Fragment 2, Pulse of the Dunes. Even time forgets. The desert once whispered with knowledge, but now it stutters. Glitches echo through lost ruins. This fragment holds rhythm of time, memory, and the old pulse of sand. But before Steve could open the 4th chest, the temple rumbled. The blocks began to shift around him, tiles jumping between types, columns splitting and snapping back in place. The floor twisted upward, and with a burst of static, a corrupted version of the desert husk burst from the far wall. It had no face, just a flickering void where eyes should be. And it wasn't alone. A second one emerged from the sandstone, then a third. Their bodies jittered as they moved, sand particles falling from them like smoke. They let out eerie, broken growls and charged. Steve didn't hesitate. He downed the golden apple, then swapped to his stone sword. The first hit staggered one of the husks, but it didn't fall. He backed up, dodged left, and struck again. 2 quick hits and it shattered, exploding into sand and static. The others came faster. Steve jumped onto a sandstone ledge, struck from above, and took down the second. The third grabbed his leg, its touch freezing his movement for a second, but he slashed free and brought it down with a final blow. Silence. The dust settled. Steve checked his health, just 4 hearts left. He ate a cooked pork chop from his stash and slowly opened the 4th chest. Inside, a map. But not like normal maps. This one was blank, except for a glowing X marked in the upper corner. Next to the X were strange symbols that shifted like Enderman runes. In the bottom right, one word flickered faintly. Mesa. Steve knew what that meant. The next fragment was hidden in a mesa biome, far from here, likely across an ocean or through treacherous terrain. He added the map to his inventory, climbed out of the collapsing temple, and stood once more beneath the glitching sun. Except the sun had moved. It now hung lower in the sky, as if it had jumped ahead. Steve realized something then. Time itself was broken in this world. Biomes didn't just change visually. The rules inside them were glitching, some faster, some slower. He would have to move carefully, plan smarter, and prepare for worse. He turned west, toward the mesa marked on the map, and began his journey once more. 2 fragments down. Who knew how many to go? But Steve was no ordinary player. He was the one chosen to fix the overworld, and he wouldn't stop until it was whole again. Chapter 4, The Red Canyon Vault. Steve traveled for days. He crossed savannas, rivers, and even a jungle temple half sunken in vines. Along the way, he upgraded his gear, crafting iron tools, a bucket, and even snagging a bow from a lucky skeleton drop. His inventory was fuller now, stocked with cooked food, arrows, and both fragments glowing softly in the hotbar. Eventually, the terrain changed. The green grass gave way to warm red sand. Layered clay cliffs towered ahead, striped in orange, white, and terracotta red. Steve had made it, the mesa biome. As he stepped into the canyon, the air felt still. There was no music, no mobs, just the sound of gravel crunching beneath his boots. He pulled out the fragment map. The glowing X floated above a cliff to the west. Steve climbed the layers carefully, pickaxe in hand. As he neared the marked spot, a gust of wind blew past, then a voice. "Stop right there." Steve froze. From behind a ridge, a figure stepped out. It wasn't a mob, it was a player. She wore dark leather armor patched with copper. Her skin was sun-touched, and her name tag glitched in and out, Naya the Builder. Steve's eyes widened. "The author of the book. You're real?" he asked. She tilted her head. "You got the book and quill. That means the overworld chose you." Steve held out the glowing fragments. Nia's expression shifted, part relief, part fear. "You're further than anyone's made it," she said, "but you don't understand what's coming." She beckoned him to follow. They descended into the canyon, weaving between jagged clay peaks until they reached a wall of smooth red sandstone. Nia placed her hand on the rock. A hidden piston door rumbled open, revealing a vault carved into the mountain. Inside, red stone lamps flickered to life. It was a forgotten lab. Tables lined with crafting components, old armor stands, and maps of the overworld dotted the room. In the center sat a glass display case containing a third fragment, this one blue, shaped like a shard of frozen water. Naya walked up to it. "This is the frost spark," she said. "I found it years ago. I tried to rebuild the heart myself, but it was too dangerous alone. The more fragments I collected, the more unstable the world became." Steve glanced at the case. "Then why keep going?" Nia looked him in the eyes. "Because if we don't, this whole world will fall apart. Every biome, every build, every player." Suddenly, the room shook. Blocks above trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Naya cursed under her breath. "They followed you." From the entrance, a glowing crack tore open, like the one in Steve's first shelter. A new mob stepped through. This one looked like a pillager, but its crossbow was fused with redstone, and its movements jittered between fast and slow. Behind it came others, corrupted Vex flickering and screeching, their wings sparking like broken command blocks. Steve and Nia fought side by side. She wielded a custom sword, part diamond, part amethyst, and slashed with precision. Steve took the left flank, shooting down 2 Vex midair and blocking the pillager's glitch bolt with his shield. Sparks flew as they battled, but finally, the last mob burst into particles. The crack sealed shut. Silence returned. Nia staggered to the wall. "They're not just hunting the fragments anymore," she said. "They're hunting you." Steve approached the frost spark. As he lifted the case, the book in his inventory flipped to a new page. Fragment 3, Frost Spark. Even fire forgets what it once froze. The spark remembers. Blue fire, ice, and code fused in one. A key to restoring balance, but also a beacon to those who seek to corrupt it. Steve placed the shard next to the others. 3 now, each glowing stronger than before. Naya sat beside a redstone map on the wall. "There's a pattern," she said, tracing her finger across dots on the overworld. "The fragments are appearing in corrupted structures, strongholds, monuments, outposts. The next is likely deep below." Steve looked at her. "Deep like mine shaft? Cave?" She shook her head. "Deep dark," she said. "Warden territory." Steve felt his stomach tighten. He had faced Endermen. He had fought Wither bosses. But the deep dark was different. It was silence. Darkness. One wrong step and the warden would rise. He gripped his sword. "I'll go," he said. Mia handed him a bundle of wool, a spyglass, and a warning. "Don't run. Don't jump. And never ever open a chest without listening first." Steve nodded. He stepped out of the vault, now carrying 3 fragments and a mission that stretched far deeper than he had imagined. Next stop, the deep dark. Chapter 5, Silence Below. Steve descended with care. The entrance to the deep dark was hidden beneath a windswept mountain, marked only by a narrow shaft filled with dripstone and shadow. Naya had given him directions. Follow the cave until the torches stop, then use wool. He lit the first stretch with his own torches, placing them every few blocks as he went deeper. Bats flitted past, and somewhere far off, a skeleton rattled. But as he dropped lower, below even the lush caves, the air changed. Cold, still, even the background music stopped. He reached the final ledge and looked down. A vast cavern stretched below him, shrouded in blackness. Faint blue veins pulsed across the stone. Skulk. He crouched and pulled out the wool blocks from his bundle. Softly, block by block, he descended. The deep dark was breathtaking. Towering ancient city ruins sprawled ahead, half sunk into the stone. Broken halls, cracked deep slate pillars, redstone contraptions once used by builders long gone, and all of it blanketed in skulk that shimmered like moonlight. Steve landed silently and placed the wool block. Step. Another block. Step. He crept forward, watching the skulk sensors twitch with each vibration. A bat flew overhead. Ping. The sensor flashed. Steve dropped to the ground instantly, not breathing. Nothing. Then again, a rustle from the shadows. Not a skeleton, not a zombie. A low rumble vibrated through the stone. Boom, boom. The warden was near. Steve didn't move. His heart thudded in his ears. The sound didn't come from footsteps. It came from the ground itself, as if the entire world was reacting to the warden's presence. He waited. Eventually, the vibration faded. He pressed on, sneaking around a ruined archway. The fragment map Mia had marked pulsed slightly, guiding him toward the heart of the city. He passed cracked, chiseled deep slate walls and ancient soul lanterns still glowing faintly. At the center was a chamber he hadn't expected. A redstone laboratory, ancient and mostly intact. Inside were levers, notes, item frames, and at the very back, a display case glowing faintly blue. The 4th fragment. It looked different from the others, like a frozen echo. The shard hovered in place, surrounded by silent particles, pulsing in sync with the skulk beneath it. Steve placed a wool block, stepped forward, and click. A hidden skulk sensor had been placed behind the display. Steve's stomach dropped. Ping. Boom. Boom. The warden had arrived. It burst through the stone like a force of nature, sniffing, gurgling, twitching toward the sound. Steve froze in place. The warden passed just 10 blocks away, its heartbeat-like chest echoing across the cavern. One wrong move, and he was done. He reached into his inventory, grabbed a snowball, and tossed it far to the left. The warden turned, moved, roared. Boom. The world seemed to shake as it followed the sound. Steve seized the moment, grabbed the fragment, tucked it into his hotbar, and crept backwards, placing wool block after wool block in reverse. The warden roared again, closer, no time. Steve sprinted, sensors lit up, shriekers screamed. Boom, boom, boom. The warden was behind him, fast. Steve leapt onto a wool pad, spun around, and threw down a swift sneak potion Naya had given him. His movement turned near silent. He ducked through a ruined hallway, darted behind a pillar, and finally reached the rope ladder he had crafted earlier. Up, up, up. The warden didn't follow. As the sound faded and the light from the surface peeked through the stone above, Steve collapsed at the top, heart pounding. He'd done it. The book flipped to a new page. Chapter 6, The Cry of Ice. Steve crossed the taiga, moving fast. Snow fell in soft flakes, blanketing the spruce trees and silencing his footsteps. Behind him, the sky flickered in broken frames. Clouds stuttered. A tree vanished, then blinked back in, this time rotated 90 degrees. The world was losing cohesion. He had to move. The fragment map pointed northeast, where the tundra turned to icy cliffs. Soon, Steve stood at the edge of the Ice Spikes biome, its towering blue crystals piercing the sky like frozen teeth. Wind howled between the columns. His breath fogged the air. Naya had called this place the a cry. Now he understood why. Steve bundled in a spare leather tunic he dyed blue, added Frostwalker boots, and stepped onto the ice. Everything was silent. No mobs, no footsteps, not even ambient cave sounds, just the whistle of wind and the creak of ancient ice shifting under pressure. He followed the map across the frozen terrain until he spotted it, an old Illager outpost buried halfway in snow. Its upper levels still stood tall, flying a tattered black banner with red stitching, one Steve didn't recognize. As he approached, he crouched behind a packed ice ridge. Through a spyglass, he saw the guards. Illagers, but not normal ones. Their skin was slightly blue, as if frostbitten. Their eyes glowed faintly red, and their weapons, axes, crossbows, were laced with frozen skulk. Steve didn't wait for them to notice him. He circled around the back, breaking through the snow-covered wall quietly with a silk-touch shovel. Inside, the structure was eerie, walls layered with icy vines, floors cracked and crumbling. He made his way to the top level, ducking past a patrolling frost pillager. At the top, a strange altar stood. It pulsed with icy light. In its center, floating above a block of blue ice, hovered the fifth fragment, shaped like a snowflake fractured in the middle. Frost spiraled around it like tiny particles suspended in midair. Steve reached for it, but as his fingers touched the fragment, a deep boom rang out. The banner below lit up, and the guards roared in unison. The outpost had been rigged. Suddenly, corrupted Illagers burst from the snow below, Vindicators in fur-lined armor, Evokers casting frozen fangs of ice across the floor. One of them screamed a single word, over and over, glitching as it spoke. CC code, breach! Steve grabbed the fragment and ran. Down the stairs, across the broken floor, arrows and frost bolts flying past his head. He jumped from the second level, rolled across powdered snow, and made a break for the spikes. Behind him, the Evoker summoned a swirling vortex of frozen Vex, their wings trailing ice as they gave chase. Steve pulled out fire charges he'd looted earlier and lobbed them behind him. Boom! Ice cracked. Fire and frost collided, blinding his pursuers for a second. He dove behind an ice spike, caught his breath, and used a book of fire protection on his armor just in case. Then he opened the book and quill. Fragment 5. Cry of Ice. Silence has memory. Frozen time. Frozen will. The cry is not just a biome, it is a fracture. This piece remembers the cold logic of the system. It is pure, still unbroken, for now. Steve tucked the fragment into his inventory. 5 now. Just 3 more to go. He turned to flee, but froze mid-step. Hovering above the altar he had just looted was a new rift, larger than before, jagged and pulsing with violet static. And from it emerged a figure. Humanoid, armored in obsidian, a cape made of swirling command lines trailing behind him. His name tag flickered red and white, unreadable, but Steve felt the weight of it in his bones. You gather pieces, but you do not understand the heart, the figure said, voice echoing like a server message. The code must evolve. Before Steve could react, the figure vanished into static. The rift sealed, and the sky above began to snow sideways. Steve stood there a moment, staring into the place where the figure had vanished. Someone, or something, was guiding the corruption. Not random glitches, not just unstable code, a force, and now it knew about him. He looked at his map. The next fragment lay far to the west, hidden in the depths of a jungle, an overgrown ruin marked with vines and ancient writing. Steve set his compass, adjusted his armor, and stepped back onto the ice, leaving only fading footprints behind him. Chapter 7. Secrets in the Vines. The jungle was thick. Vines hung from the trees, swaying like curtains in a windless room. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay. Every step Steve took sank a little deeper into the rich green underbrush. It was a sharp contrast to the cold ice he had just left behind, and the air felt suffocating after the open spaces of the tundra. But he wasn't here for the view. The fragment map had pointed him here, to the heart of the jungle. The jungle was known for its labyrinthine paths, hidden temples, and dangerous mobs. Yet none of that fazed Steve as much as the sense that something bigger was at play. The jungle felt like it was watching him. The trees were unnaturally silent. No birds, no creatures, just the faintest rustle of leaves when he moved. As he neared the coordinates marked on the map, Steve saw what he was looking for. A temple, half covered in moss and vines. It seemed ancient, its blocks worn by time. The stone structure was decorated with strange symbols, twisting, spiraling shapes that almost looked like code. The fragments he had collected so far had all hinted at something bigger, something hidden within the heart. Now, he felt that same energy radiating from the temple. He approached cautiously, eyes scanning the area for traps. The jungle was known for its puzzle-laden ruins, and Steve wasn't about to make a mistake here. But the temple was different. It wasn't a traditional jungle temple with tripwires or pressure plates. Instead, as Steve stepped inside, the door closed behind him with a heavy thud. The ground shifted beneath his feet, and the walls began to hum. "Welcome, traveler," a voice boomed from all around him. Steve froze, his hand instinctively reaching for his sword. The voice didn't come from a mob. It was mechanical, almost like a program running on an ancient server. The voice continued, "You have come to seek the heart, but you must prove worthy, as others before you have failed." Before Steve could react, a redstone door slid open, revealing a dark passageway. Torchlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. As he walked forward, the hum from the walls grew louder. The passage led to a large chamber, its walls lined with ancient stone slabs covered in intricate carvings. At the far end of the room, on a raised platform, sat the sixth fragment, a jagged shard of obsidian. But there was a catch. The floor was covered in lava, flowing from cracks in the stone. The only safe way across was a series of narrow stone platforms suspended in the air, barely wide enough for a footstep. And standing guard at the other end of the room, 2 iron golems stood motionless, as if they were part of the temple's ancient defense system. Steve had encountered iron golems before, but these weren't normal. Their eyes glowed with a faint red light, their bodies shimmering with frozen skulk, and when Steve approached, they creaked to life, their heads swiveling to track his movement. The voice spoke again. "You must pass the trial of balance. Only then may you claim the heart's power." Steve's mind raced. This was no ordinary puzzle. This was a test. He surveyed the room. The platforms were spaced just far enough apart that crossing would be a challenge, especially with the golems on guard. But the lava would burn through his armor if he fell. He pulled out the fragment map. The sixth fragment sat at the end of the platform, just above the lava. But there were no hints in the book about how to get past the guardians. A flicker of movement caught his eye. One of the golems was shifting, its body slowly turning to face him. He needed a plan. First, he took out his bow and aimed it at the nearest golem, shooting an arrow with perfect precision into its chest. The golem staggered, its glow flaring in irritation, but it didn't charge. It wasn't moving. Odd, Steve thought, taking a step closer. Then it hit him. These weren't ordinary golems. They were part of the trial, just like the walls, just like the puzzle. They wouldn't attack until he tried to pass the platforms. He had to balance the puzzle, making sure not to trigger the golems, while also navigating the platforms. Steve placed a wool block on the first platform, stepping carefully onto it. He immediately felt the familiar hum of pressure beneath his feet. The platform tilted slightly, but didn't fall. He moved quickly, placing wool beneath his feet as he went. Each step was calculated. Foot down, check for balance, step again. The golems stared, their eyes flashing every time he placed the wool block. Step, step. Steve jumped across the gap and landed on the next platform, placing more wool. He was halfway through the room when the first golem moved. It stomped toward him, its massive body charging. Without thinking, Steve sprinted, leaping over the gap, landing just short of the next platform. He barely caught himself before falling into the lava, but he kept his balance. The golem reached the platform, its hammering footsteps shaking the room. It was close. Another jump, another wool block. He was nearly there. He could see the obsidian fragment just ahead, gleaming with cold, jagged edges. But then, just as he reached the final platform, the golem swiped at him with its iron fist. Steve ducked. He grabbed the fragment. With a sharp intake of breath, he spun around, dodging another swipe and making the final leap back across the platforms. The golem growled in frustration, but it was too late. The fragment was his. He sprinted back down the hallway, a stone door opening before him as the hum of the room died away. The voice spoke one last time. Trial passed. The heart is within your reach. Steve held up the sixth fragment in his hand. 6 fragments now. He could feel the power in his grip. As he left the temple, the jungle seemed to shift. The vines swayed gently, and the distant sound of mobs returned, but there was still an unsettling quiet around him. The world felt like it was being watched. And somewhere, far away, that figure from the ice peaks, the one who had spoken of the code, was waiting. The final pieces of the puzzle were about to fall into place. Chapter 8: Skybound. Steve stood at the edge of the cliffs, staring into the abyss. Below him stretched the floating islands, a massive chain of end stone and purple towers that seemed to hover impossibly in the sky. The islands had long been abandoned by the Ender Dragon, but they still pulsed with residual energy. The fragment map marked the next piece deep within this aerial maze. This place had always been a mystery, a forgotten remnant of a time before the end. It felt like a place out of balance, where the laws of the overworld didn't apply. With a deep breath, Steve adjusted his gear and activated the electro wings he had prepared. It was the only way to cross such a vast, sky-high expanse. He jumped from the cliff and spread his wings, catching the wind. The cold air hit his face, but he was used to it by now. The sky was his domain now. But the floating islands weren't as peaceful as they seemed. Just ahead, Endermen shimmered into view, floating like specters, their eyes glowing purple as they watched Steve's every move. They weren't hostile at first, but the more he moved through their territory, the more they seemed to react, gathering in greater numbers. He focused on the first island, heading for a large purple tower that stretched high above the others. It was old, its surface cracked and weathered, with vines growing along the edges. As he approached, he noticed something strange. The air around the tower shimmered with distortion, like a broken block texture in mid-transition. It was a rift. Steve's heart skipped a beat. He had learned to recognize these anomalies. Corruption. It had spread beyond the overworld, tearing through the fabric of space. This was where the corruption had started, where it was most concentrated. Without hesitation, Steve banked left and began flying toward the rift. As he got closer, the rift began to pulse, its jagged edges sparking with purple energy. Then, out of nowhere, a shrieking ender crystal shot from the rift, crackling with dark energy. It was as if the world itself was rejecting his presence, the sky twisting in response. He dodged the crystal by a hair's breadth, narrowly missing the explosion of purple energy. The shockwave sent him tumbling through the air, but he regained control and banked sharply toward the center of the island. There, in the middle of the floating ruin, stood a monument, a stone obelisk, unlike any Steve had seen before. The sixth fragment was embedded at the top of the structure, glowing with an eerie purple light, surrounded by corrupted ender pearls that floated in midair like miniature black holes. Steve carefully landed on the nearest ledge, his wings folding behind him. The Endermen, no longer passive, gathered in the distance, their glowing eyes fixed on him. The air grew thick with tension, and the rift pulsed again, this time more violently. Then he heard a voice. "You are too late." The words echoed through the rift, reverberating in Steve's chest. It was the same voice, the one he had heard earlier in the jungle, the one that had spoken from the rift. Steve tightened his grip on his sword. "I'm not done yet," he muttered, focusing on the obelisk and the fragment embedded within it. He reached into his inventory and pulled out his ender pearls. One by one, he threw them toward the floating crystals, breaking their hold over the area. With each blast, the Enderman hissed in fury, charging at Steve, but he held them off with his sword, slicing through the dark figures that blinked in and out of existence. Then, with a final throw, Steve hurled an ender pearl directly at the fragment. It hit the base of the obelisk, causing a massive shockwave to ripple through the floating islands. The ender crystals shattered into dust, and the fragment dislodged from its resting place. As the obelisk crumbled, Steve reached up and grabbed the seventh fragment, but the rift didn't close. Instead, it expanded. The sky above grew dark, and the ground beneath him rumbled. The Enderman stopped moving, now silent, watching. Then, from the heart of the rift, a massive creature began to emerge. It was an Ender Beast, a towering, corrupted creature made of twisted Ender energy. Its body was a swirling vortex of black and purple, its glowing eyes fixed on Steve like an apex predator. It let out a deafening screech as it stepped forward, its feet causing the very air to vibrate. Steve's heart pounded. He had to act quickly. With the rift growing larger by the second, he turned and dove toward the nearby cliff, using his elytra to soar across the gap and land safely on the next island. The Enderbeast followed, its large glowing form distorting the air behind it. Steve didn't look back. He sprinted across the island, ducking behind ancient purple ruins as the creature roared in fury. The Endermen were still watching, frozen in place as the rift pulsed. Steve felt the presence of the heart growing closer. He reached the edge of the island and turned back one last time. The Enderbeast was gaining, its form flickering with lightning. Steve jumped. With a final burst of energy, he launched himself into the air, his wings catching the wind. The creature howled as it was sucked back into the rift, but it was too late. Steve held the seventh fragment tightly in his hands. He was almost there. Chapter 9: In the Broken Stronghold. The sky was heavy with clouds as Steve stepped onto the cracked stone of the stronghold. It had been a long journey to get here, across vast oceans, through deep forests, and over mountains that scraped the heavens. But now, in the heart of the Overworld, Steve faced the final piece of the puzzle, the heart of the Overworld. But it was no longer the same Overworld. The landscape had shifted since Steve's first steps. The world was slowly folding in on itself, the corruption spreading like ink in water. Glitching blocks appeared at random, and mobs appeared and disappeared in stutters, disjointed and broken. The stronghold was a place of contradictions. Half of it was trapped in stone, untouched by time. The other half had been swallowed by corruption, twisted, darkened, and crumbling. The walls flickered in and out of existence, the very fabric of reality wavering. Steve held the seventh fragment in his hand, a shard of obsidian that seemed to hum with an ancient power. It was the final piece he needed. He could feel it, a deep, familiar pull from somewhere in the depths of the stronghold. Somewhere beneath the broken floors and the end portal. He moved deeper into the stronghold, weaving between shattered bookshelves and broken stone. The place felt like a forgotten dream, a maze of memories, all twisted and corrupted by something far older than Steve could imagine. It was then that he heard it. The voice. Welcome home. It was the same voice that had spoken to him through the rifts, the one that had guided him through the corruption, the voice that had promised destruction, a force beyond anything Steve had ever faced. Steve tensed, his grip on the sword tightening. He stepped into a large chamber at the heart of the stronghold, an area surrounded by ancient stone pillars, and at the center, a massive altar stood, its surface cracked and covered with a thin layer of dust. But it wasn't the altar that drew Steve's attention. It was the heart of the Overworld, floating above the altar. A massive, glowing fragment that pulsed with the energy of all the pieces combined, surrounded by swirling patterns of corrupted code. The heart was everything. Power, life, and the source of the corruption that had been spreading throughout the world. As Steve approached the altar, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was the same figure that had appeared in the ice peaks, the one who had spoken to him from the rift, the entity behind the corruption. He was cloaked in obsidian armor, his eyes glowing with the static of fractured code. His voice, once distorted, now sounded clear. "You are too late," he said, his voice cold and final. "The heart is mine. You cannot stop what is already in motion." Steve's mind raced. He had faced challenges, fought mobs, and uncovered secrets. But this was different. This was the source, the heart, the thing that had caused everything to unravel. "Who are you?" Steve demanded, his voice steady, despite the uncertainty creeping into his chest. "Why are you doing this?" The figure's laugh was hollow. "I am the code, the system. The heart is but a part of me, a flaw in the world, waiting to be corrected. You do not understand. You cannot comprehend." Steve stepped forward, holding the fragments in his hand. "I understand enough to know that this corruption must end." The figure's eyes flared with a sickly purple light. "You have no choice. The heart must be reborn. The world must be remade." In that moment, everything around Steve seemed to shift. The stronghold flickered and twitched, blocks coming and going in stutters, like the very code of the Overworld was breaking apart. The ground cracked, revealing vast pits of endstone beneath, and the rift that had been following Steve's every step now expanded, threatening to swallow everything. With a flash, the figure was upon him. His sword, a blade made of pure corrupted obsidian, swung down towards Steve, who barely managed to block with his own blade. "You cannot fight the code," the figure sneered, pushing him back. "It is inevitable." Steve gritted his teeth, refusing to give up. The fragments he had collected felt heavy in his pocket, their power calling out to him. The heart above the altar pulsed, its light flickering with more intensity, as if responding to the battle. The corruption in the room twisted and writhed, pushing Steve to the edge. He had no time to waste. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for the overworld itself. With a swift move, Steve dodged the figure's next strike and grabbed the seventh fragment, holding it up to the heart. The pieces began to glow, their energy converging with the heart's pulse. The figure froze, his eyes widening. "No," he hissed, a tremor of fear in his voice. "You cannot." But it was too late. The fragments began to merge, their power combining with the heart's energy. The room shook, the walls flickering and cracking as the corruption began to unravel. The static code surrounding the heart collapsed, and the entire stronghold began to glow with a brilliant light. Steve's body crackled with energy as the power of the heart surged through him. The figure screamed in fury, but his form began to dissolve, unraveling like corrupted code. With a final flash, the figure was gone, and the heart of the overworld was whole. Chapter 10. The Heart Reborn. The glow of the heart filled the entire stronghold, its light so bright it was blinding. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze in time. The walls flickered and shuddered, the sky above darkened, and the very air seemed to hum with power. Steve stood at the center of it all, his hand gripping the last fragment, now pulsing with an intense, rhythmic beat. The heart, restored and whole, throbbed in the center of the room, sending waves of energy throughout the stronghold. For a brief second, everything felt right. Then, the world began to tear. The corruption, the dark code that had plagued the overworld for so long, suddenly fought back, like a last-ditch effort to maintain its grip on reality. The walls shook, cracks appearing in the stone, and the once vibrant blue sky flickered, glitching between its normal state and the static purple of the corruption. Steve clenched his teeth. He had come so far, gathered all the fragments, defeated the twisted figure behind the heart's corruption. But now there was one final choice: to restore the world or to let it fall into chaos. A voice echoed in his mind. It was the same voice he had heard before, the voice of the one who had corrupted the heart, the one who had tried to take over the world. "You cannot undo what has been done, Steve. The heart is mine. The code is mine. The world is mine." Steve's grip tightened around the fragment. "No." He spoke the word firmly, the final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. This wasn't just about power. It wasn't about control. It was about the balance of the world, about the freedom of the overworld. He raised the heart high above his head. "This world is not yours. It never was." As he spoke those words, the heart pulsed once more, sending out a shockwave of pure light that flooded the stronghold. The light expanded outward, cutting through the corrupted code, unraveling it, and purging the corruption from the very fabric of reality. The figure, the entity behind the corruption, screeched as it dissolved completely, a final cry of defeat echoing into the void. The rift that had plagued the overworld for so long collapsed in on itself, and the glitching ceased. The Ender Beast faded into nothing, and the fractured walls of the stronghold began to rebuild themselves. Steve didn't lower the heart. He couldn't. The power it held was immense, but he knew it had to be used wisely. The land, the sky, and the creatures of the overworld were watching. Everything was on the brink of change. The fragments had done their job. The heart, now whole, was no longer an object of destruction. It was a force of balance. The stronghold trembled once more, but this time, it was not the destructive tremor of corruption. It was a rumble of life, of rebuilding. The land itself seemed to breathe, to wake up from the nightmare it had been living. The heart pulsed again, this time sending a gentle wave of energy outward. As the wave spread, the corruption that had taken root in the world started to recede. Mobs, once twisted and corrupted by the heart's power, returned to their natural forms. Endermen, once filled with rage and malice, now stood tall, their eyes no longer glowing with hostility, but with a quiet curiosity. Steve smiled, but his relief was short-lived. There was still work to be done. He turned, looking out across the stronghold. He had won, yes, but the world wasn't healed yet. The overworld had been broken, scarred, and it would take time to restore it completely. The heart couldn't fix everything at once. It had restored balance, but the world still needed healing. That was where Steve came in. With the heart of the overworld in his hands, Steve could help guide the world back to its original state. He could rebuild the lands, plant forests, clear the corrupted land, and restore life. The heart was powerful, but it needed a protector, someone to keep the balance and guide the world forward. And Steve wasn't alone. Behind him, Nia stepped forward, a grin spreading across her face. She had been with him through it all. The desert temples, the jungle ruins, the deep dark caverns, and the towering sky islands. Now, as the heart settled into the overworld, she was just as ready as Steve to rebuild. "You did it," she said, her voice warm with pride. Steve turned to her, offering the heart to Nia. "We did it," he corrected, a glint of determination in his eyes. They stood there, looking at the world that was slowly mending itself, the corrupted land starting to heal, the mobs returning to their natural patterns. The trees began to grow again, the grass turning lush and green, the oceans calm and clear. The overworld was alive again, but the adventure wasn't over. It never truly was. Steve looked up at the sky. He had saved the world, but he could sense that there was still so much more to explore. The end was still out there. The Nether, with its dark, dangerous secrets, remained a challenge. And who knew what other mysteries the heart had unlocked? There would always be more to uncover, more to build, more to create. And as long as Steve stood guard over the heart, the overworld would be safe. "Ready for the next adventure?" Steve asked, turning to Nia with a grin. Nia raised an eyebrow, her hand resting on her diamond sword. Always. With that, Steve and Nia stepped forward, side by side, ready for whatever came next. The heart of the overworld had been reborn, and with it, a new chapter of adventure began.